An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6, Chapter 52, Marching Through Georgia. Okay. Even with the cacophony of steel, hoofbeats and screams, Edmure could still pick up the low whoosh of a volley descending upon its mission of death. "Shields up!" he bellowed, heaving the massive polygon of wood and metal emblazoned with a blue river fish of House Tully in front of his face. All around him his men did the same as the wave of arrows slammed into the dead winter grass below them. Clunks filled his ears from the sharp metal points hitting his shield, and the occasional scream or wet slap ringing from a successful hit. To his right, the Unsullied moved in a fluid formation, silent despite the deadly rain. It unnerved Edmure and filled him with courage. Many a Tully bannerman fought like a wildcat to keep toe-to-toe with the indefatigable Unsullied. The Unsullied would face a formidable Grag force in the future battles. If they escaped the westerlands, that is. It was over in what had to be several seconds, though it felt like hours to Edmure. "Back in formation! Move your peckers! Formation!" Once again Greyworm managed to secure the same without making a sound. Cheeky bastard, Edmure thought, shifting his gaze from the hardened Unsullied commander to the enemy. Hoofbeats slamming into the ground, kicking up a massive dust storm. The horse archers were doubling back in a narrow arc. Damn! It had to be the same for the last day. The southern Westerlands produced some of the best horsemen in Westeros, and some bright Lannister moron created an army of thousands of horse archers to complement the men-at-arms. "Get ready, men! Another charge coming!" He drew his sword. Every time archers would unload a volley of arrows to soften them up, and every time they bugged out an infantry charge surged forth. Facing losses, needed speed forced the army to abandon all siege weapons and most of their baggage train, closer to the now burnt husk of Casterly Rock. Edmure and Greyworm, though the noblemen didn't know what the tight-lipped Esselcy freedman thought, didn't figure out if they could last much longer. But fight they would. "Think this is the end, brother?" he asked Greyworm, who had his spear at the ready. "No, I think last once. Maybe two more." Edmure laughed. The Unsullied face remained impassive. It is common knowledge that only her master's striking translator could decipher what would call emotion from him. "First time I figured you an optimist." Already the Lannister infantry stormed up. "See you in Oz, my friend!" Trumpets blared from the opposing forces, glinting armour and waving banners beginning the steady surge forward, the ragged Imperial lines. But the faint screech, clear to all the deafening sound dampened by distance, stilled the lines. Troops on both sides turned their heads skyward, toward the horizon, out of puzzlement. Or curiosity. It dawned on the Imperials first. Confusion turning to ragged cheers as the bellows and roars grew ever closer. Veterans of battles long past, of the fighting long joined by the awesome magic of legend. All in the Imperial army recognized the screech of Her Majesty's dragons. But a split second later, the red-black spectre of impending fire and blood crested over the hills, marring the flat horizon. Bat-like wings beat with the power of 1,000 men, propelling the giant beast forward. 3 small birds hovered closer. Only they were not birds. Each coloured their distinctive hue. The horror of one massive dragon turned to the terror of 4. Further shouts and war cries left the exultant Tullys, while the Lannisters stood stock still from fear and mortal terror. Gloved hands wrapping tight around Balerion's spines, Daenerys made sure to look the part of the Targaryen conqueror. Her hair, knotted sparingly, flowed free in silver waves behind her, conjuring memories of the legends of Visenya and Lyanna Stark. A dress of all black leather was topped off with a red sash around her waist. Saracen was clipped to her hip, all joined by the undeniable fierceness of Balerion the Dread reborn upon the earth, joined by his young sisters in their first taste of battle. Slowly, Dany gave the mental orders for her children to bang towards the still shocked Lannister forces. Swarmed like ants, man and horse began to grow bigger in her vision. She stared with fire and blood in her eyes. Death came with a single word. "Dracarys!" More opening with a glow. The red-orange tongue of flame erupted from Balerion towards the snow-covered plains of the Westerlands. Screams ended as soon as they were begun, as the fires engulfed them, Balerion beating his massive wings down a single line. Arrows arced upwards, but failed to pierce his thickly scaled belly. On the fringes, horse archers found themselves the targets of Rayella, Sansenya, and Leonaris. Small as they were, their bodies contained enough fire to deliver upon the enemy as their big brother did the good masters of Astapor so many years ago. It was all over within minutes. The fields were filled with the detritus of a defeated army. Some fled on horseback or on foot, stripping off their armour and abandoning their weapons to increase speed. Many others gathered around men, holding aloft makeshift white cloth flags, praying to the Seven that the dreaded Unsullied wouldn't slay them outright, though the intelligent among them would fear the Taliban men more. Most, however, lay upon the battlefield, bodies charred beyond recognition, armour melted away, gentle winds turning their bones to pure ash as they disintegrated before the very eyes of the survivors. Dragonfire knew no houses, no distinctions. Anyone within the range of the dragon's blast would be wiped off the face of the earth. Such was the legendary Targaryen fire and blood, so diluted by the lesser men and women who tarnished the legacy of Aegon the Conqueror. Glancing behind her, spotting hundreds of enemy soldiers toss down their weapons in surrender, Daenerys felt the surge of energy coursing through her. A small victory, but one heralded across the lands of Westeros with symbolic trumpets. Tywin had the second round delivered, recovering his position and dealing a stinging blow right to the Empire's gut. But the Dragon Empress was not out of the fight. Her dragons were not out of the fight, bringing fire and blood upon her enemies. The message was clear. She knew it. And Tywin would know it the moment he received the news. Outside of their fortress city and armed camps, their forces were nothing but ash. Once the great dragon wolf returned from Essos, the Chimera would face the fight of his life. A fight that Daenerys intended on winning. The midday sun beat down on the two entourages gathered outside the city of Meereen. A gentle breeze, cool due to the altitude over the city and the proximity to the sparkling waters of Slaver's Bay, provided some relief, but not enough. Podrick, Sir Barristan, and the Stark bannermen gathered to protect their sovereign all wished this would end soon. Flowing robes and olive skin protected from the heat and the light. The masters and their conscripts had no such concerns. Well, well. Arms crossed, a smug aristocratic grin draped over his face. Razdel Moa Raz of the Wise Masters of Yunkai met Jon's silent glance. Jon had requested this parley, but knew before it even began that any chance of negotiation was pointless. As with the parley with Viserys and Ramsay Bolton, he was proven correct. Here we are, at the culmination of years of chaos and despair. I am not sure if your wife stoops low enough to inform her country bumpkin of a husband about pressing matters, but she could have left from the gates of Yunkai with a fleet of ships. And yet, here we are, where you will flee to her skirts with a single sloop. We are here to discuss the terms of surrender, Podrick stated, jumping in before Jon could. Not trade insults. He is the Emperor of the Targaryen Empire, and you shall treat him with respect. Moa Raz glanced at his companions, sniggering. Are we to address a well-plug you? Barely old enough to shave? Aristocratic protocol broke for a moment as he laughed. You will address me yourself, Razdal Moa Raz, Jon replied, a voice firm but emotionless. State your terms, for the SLC scan aggravates my fair country bumpkin skin. If the three masters caught his sarcasm, they did not show it. Our terms are simple, Yazdan Karaz stated. Wrapped in a dark cotton cloak with the drab colours of the simple merchant he was, he made a departure from the patrician arrogance of the other two. And likely from the entirety of the Masters' alliance, he was all business, which Jon noted.
You and your foreign friends will leave the Great Pyramid and the city of Marine, and return to Westeros, as you have no business in Slavers Bay. Since the Unsullied your wife stole from Caran's Naglaws are not here, you shall leave your northern bannermen here to be sold to the highest bidder. The 2 dragons you have brought with you will be slaughtered, so that Slavers Bay shall never be threatened again. Be thankful, for that is all we are asking of you.
Staring straight ahead at them, cocking his head to the side, Jon began to chuckle. Oh, my friends. I believe you have misunderstood my intentions. No, this parley was to discuss the terms of your surrender to the Empire. It was a turn the masters to be puzzled and amused. Our surrender, Moraz said dismissively. You must be joking. I only joke to persons I find in esteem, the Emperor replied. Here are my terms, and they are a one-time offer for the lot of you. Hands behind his back, Jon began to pace in front of them, eyes darting every 10 seconds or so from one master to the other. Rather average height for a Westerosi, the shorter stature of those on the larger continent let him be far more intimidating. You will get on a ship and head for Karth. There you will live in exile for the rest of your days. I will allow you to keep all your gold and your riches, but all slaves will be left behind. Yunkai, Astapor and Volantis will become open cities for my arrival, as they belong to the Empire as crown domains. Looking amongst each other, mere seconds passed before chuckles left their throats. You jest, correct? Baliko Peneriman had been silent so far, watching the negotiations with a smirk as Moraz and Zogaraz did the talking, but this was too ludicrous to pass up. We are not defenseless prisoners that you may slaughter with impunity, bastard of House Stark. Adjusting to the new reality seems to be hard for you, as it was for your wife. At least the dragon bitch had lovely lips and a set of tits pleasant to look at, Moraz said to his comrades, the other 2 laughing. This one looks like a boy, and not one of the good ones. Jon bit his tongue, trying not to react. I shudder to think what happens to the boys you consider good ones, he replied nonchalantly. Podrick and Saracen hid smirks at the slight surprise crossing the faces of the 3 masters. Underestimate him they did, just like with Daenerys. Joffrey and Tywin promise you the moon, but mark my words, they will be your undoing. Stepping forward, Jon's hands were plastered behind his back. Behind him, the northern bannermen tightened their holds on their pikes. In the north, there is an old saying. He who passes the sentence swings the sword. My father, Ned Stark, would often tell my brothers and I that the true meaning was that a lord must sacrifice for his men, fight alongside his men, in whatever battles or struggles arise. He stared at each of the masters, then turning towards the troop behind them. They were clutching their swords, unsure of what was happening. I fight alongside my men in battle. Fight for my men in battle. Accented, Jon's Valyrian was passable. He couldn't wait to see Dany's reaction. It has always been abstract. Others dying at your order. Others being sold into bondage on your order. But tell me, when would any of you be willing to die for the men standing behind you? An awkward silence fell. Hushed whispers from some of the Yunkai soldiers filling the void. The silence was broken by Zogaraz, confirming Jon's hunch. I need not defend myself to you, bastard. It was telling to the Emperor that this self-made new man had answered him, feeling the need for defending himself. The others were nobles, highborn of the most illustrious order. Zogaraz was the son of a slaver, and the grandson of an overseer, as low on the rungs of the ladder as any freeborn in Slavers Bay. Only his wealth brought him to where he was. If there was any weak link who could be broken from the chain and added to Jon's, it was him. Stepping directly in front of him, Jon's grey eyes bored deeply into the hazel of the slaver-turned-good master. Zogaraz Zozadal speaks highly of you, Yezen Zogaraz. Commented on your honour, your scruples, your benevolence in dealing with your slaves. For someone of such high birth to comment in that manner, for the grandson of an overseer, is quite high praise indeed.
Confused, the good master blinked. Opening his mouth, no words came out. Moeraz and Panamian watched with interest to the side. No one knew where John was going with this, not even Sir Barristan. The dragon wolf was an enigma to most, his northern features giving away nothing. He had learned from his youth. A hand reached out to clasp Zogarag's shoulder. "Do you honestly think there is a place?" John whispered, low enough for only the two of them to hear. "A place for you in Joffrey's new slavery? That you are one of the lucky few that will get to keep his freedom?" "I control Astapor. They would not dare," he replied, though there was a slight waver in his attempt to be haughty. John smiled. Only those born and raised as Highborn could succeed at the imperious arrogance. "Your money secured Astapor for yourself, not your birth. It is wise to believe that it will keep you at the top of the Chimera's world." With that, he stepped back to his group, nodding. "It is a shame, noble masters, that I will have to reject your offers. They are not serious, as you have clearly made up your mind on war. We free people do not go gently into the eternal darkness of bondage." While Zogaraz was quiet, the other two sneered. "You will regret this, Jon Snow." Any that still used his defunct bastard name, much as John still habitually saw himself as such, given it was his identity for so long, showed himself as an enemy. Moeraz was close to spitting from disrespect. "The dragon bitch must realize that our reign is over." Eyes narrowing, John met their stares for the final time. "Our reign has just begun." "No water for him!" The crackle of the whip and the cry of agony from the emaciated slave sent Arya flinching back, more from instinct than any real fear. A girl has no fear. It was wise to give the overseers a wide berth. The rough wooden cup clattered to the ground, life-giving liquid seeping out onto the dusty stone below. "Pick it up, girl!" With his eloquent command given, the overseer dragged the hapless wraith out of the ragged waterline and began thrashing him within an inch of his life. Picking up the cup and dipping it within the water trough, Arya sent an unseen, hateful glare at the cruel brute. The poor slave, babbling on in Volantine Valyrian, wouldn't last the hour. She had seen plenty of others in the same malnourished and broken condition, in mere weeks since arriving, to know what would happen. Arya squinted at the blinding sunlight from the golden statue of the Bane of House Stark hit her eyes. Damn Joffrey! Damn him to hells! He must have been so smug, preening in that den of scumitude that was his, at how the illustrious Arya Stark was labouring as a common water wench in the shadows of the great sept of the Holy Chimera. 5 times the size of the sept of Baelor, at minimum, as the monument to his madness. Wiping the sweat off her brow, as a grateful young labourer greedily sipped at the nourishing liquid, Arya shrugged off the blisters on her soles and burns on her shoulders. Joffrey, Cersei, Ilan Payne, Littlefinger, the Mountain, the Waif, Tycho Nestoris, Viserys Targaryen, Daario Naharis. Again and again she stated her list in her head, contracted by 2 and expanded by 1. Joffrey thought he had broken her, beaten her, but it would be he at the end who would reap the icy whirlwind of the north. Filling up her serving cup with another offering of water, Arya was too lost in her thoughts of vengeance to notice the identity of who had arrived in front of her. Such ignorance would not last long. Well, fuck me blind. Head jerking around, sparkling drops of water spilling from the cup onto the dusty stone below, Arya found herself staring up at the scarred form of her former protector and former resident of her list. Whatever god is out there must fucking hate my guts. Scowling, she thrust the cup into his hands. And how the fuck are you still alive? Throwing his head back, Sandor Clegane laughed uproariously. Funny! I asked your fuck buddy that last damn time I saw him. Did he finally die? Rolling her eyes, Arya snatched the cup back. Fuck off! Further laughs leaving the hound's throat as he winked at her and strode off. Hello there. Arya looked up to see a Dornishman, eyes undressing her with obvious hunger. Her arms immediately began blaring a warning, muscles tensing. "Here," she grunted, shoving the cup into his hand. Arya hoped he would head out and back like the rest of the back-breaking work lines. The labourer downed the life-giving liquid. "Thank you, beautiful lady," he drawled, leaning down to return the cup back. A wandering hand slithered quickly to grope between her legs. Before Arya could punch the man in the throat, she knew that one quick jab could send someone of any size to the ground, writhing in seconds flat. A massive hand wrapped around the man's neck, lifting him up.
"Didn't your mama tell you not to touch a woman's butt unless she wants it? Last person I saw did so. Smashed his fucking head into a wall."
Suddenly a flogger smacked into Clegane's back with a wet slap, drawing blood. He hissed, releasing the other man to the ground with a thud. "Get back to work!" A seething overseer paled when he faced the massive bear of a man, burn scar on his head only adding to the intimidating scowl that could wither even the strongest of men. "Now! Now!" "All right," said the hound, inwardly satisfied the overseer fled for easier pastures. Arya stared at him, scowling herself. "I'm not some defenceless damsel. I can defend myself, you know."
"Never said you couldn't," the hound shrugged,
bending over to toss a sack of rocks over his muscled shoulder.
"Out of all the pains in my ass I've ever encountered in my miserable life, I knew you'd survive."
Arya snorted. "I'll take that as a compliment, I think." Offering him a crack of a smile, she then turned to begin the process of filling her cup yet again. Perhaps her still formulating strategy would be easier than she realized. Heated air pushing against his tent, the flaps fluttering fiercely. John's eyes remained closed in thought. In calming thought. The quick fingers of Ollie fastening his cuirass tight around his toned torso. Leather emblazoned with the seal of the dragon wolf. What it lacked in ostentation, it made up for in Spartan fierceness. There was no reason for such. A reason for the closed eyes and calming thoughts. The Emperor. Jaehaerys Targaryen. Jon Stark. Jon Snow. Was marching to war once more. "All done, sire," Ollie replied, bowing.
John rolled his eyes. "Enough of that, Ollie. You've known me long enough to avoid that shit in private."
The boy gave him a splendid grin. A laugh left John, admiring the boy's exuberance at the cause. Reminded him a lot of himself.
"You have grown into a strong lad, Ollie, which is why you'll be marching with me into battle."
If the boy had been happy before, the smile on his face was close to ripping his cheeks in half.
"Go choose a sword and get into formation with Podrick. He'll find a place for you."
The young squire dashed off. Sighing, the Emperor sheathed Longclaw and tied his hair back into a riding bun, a look that Dany found quite dashing on him. Though she often voiced her preference for long curls she could run her fingers through and grip as they made love. He chastised his mind, though thoughts taking him to places that both warmed and frustrated him in more ways than one.
"For you, Dany. I am fighting to return to you."
With that, he brushed back the flaps of the tent and emerged into the world.
"Battalion! Present to your Emperor!"
The line of hoplites came into formation, pikes clattering against shields as they stood in a double line surrounding John's path. Nodding, John began to walk along the dusty earth. It had been a week since the parley with the masters, and the day after John had moved his army out of Marine and to the plains overlooking the city alongside the coast. Perfect to prepare. To the right he saw Willis help a certain cripple onto Edoron's back. The white dragon looked displeased, missing out on some action.
"Be careful, Bran!" he called to his brother. "Make sure he doesn't dismount anywhere but Winterfell."
John added to Mira. "I'll make sure of that, sire," Mira replied, looking at Bran intently. The young Stark said nothing, smiling softly.
"Fly straight, my child."
Edoron nodded imperceptibly at his father, then roared once, ascending into the air with the beat of his mighty wings. John covered his face as a cloud of dust swirled for several seconds after Edoron's wake.
"We're with you, sire!"
one bannerman yelled from the front.
"No slaver cur can stop the dragon wolf!"
Another shouted, "Victory will be ours!" Catching a glimpse of where the last comment came from, John met the utterer's eyes as he strode forward. The young man, no more than a year older than John, gulped.
Sire? You a Bolton man?
The Emperor asked simply. There was no sense in lying, and even if he could, the boy was too intimidated by the legendary white dragon wolf to do so. Aye. An eyebrow went up.
Fought at Winterfell?
Aye. John nodded, clicking his tongue.
Fought well that day. Give you a same all against the masters, you'll surely win.
The boy gave a relieved, smiling breath as the others all hooted around him.
What is your name, lad?
John, sire. John Smith, son of the assistant smith at the Dreadfort.
Ah, John, you say. An auspicious name.
He clasped John Smith's shoulders,
looking out at the rest of the hoplites. There's a man named John I know of. Never lost a battle. Heard of him, boys?
Cheers rang out, the men smacking their pikes against their shields in a wild applause.
Well, make sure he doesn't break that streak.
Cheers grew louder. Dragon Wolf!
Dragon Wolf!
Dragon Wolf! With a thud, Rhaegal landed before his father, lowering his wings so that John could climb atop him.
It's time, boy. Don't let me die.
The dragon let out a growl, as if chiding him for even suggesting it. Settling on Dragonback, with a mere mental command, Rhaegal ascended into the air. Below, formations in the thousands began the march along the coastal road.
Time to end this, once and for all.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that, because I did. Oh boy, okay. I like that it was John saying, our reign has just begun, and him encouraging John Smith and Ollie is absolutely lovely. Okay, here we go again, right guys? Danny being pissed as well this chapter or the last. Oh boy. You guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And make sure to check out my other videos as well. I don't just do Game of Thrones here, people, which I'm sure if you have subscribed, you already know. Anyway, bye!